Welcome, my name is Lucas. I'm one of the managing directors and founders of bookingkit. Welcome to our weekly help talks. Thanks for being here. I'm looking forward to spend the next 45 minutes with you together. As you know, we see our role as booking system in this crisis to network, to show you some information, to give you update about the current state of the industry, give you best practices, what is happening. Since last week, we have been talking with a lot of experts from the industry. We have been talking with veterans from the industry to get their perspective, what helped them back in old crises, how are different crises, how did they went down, what helped during these crises, and also how's the situation currently in China. We wanted to better understand how the situation is in China. We talked to a lot of operators, both in Asia, both here in Europe. We talked with our more than 6,000 operators we have on bookingkit. We shared best practices, and this is what we compiled for you guys here today, to actually have best practice information, to have updates from the industry, how things are going forward, how are things moving in China. And that's what we're also doing here today. So let's dive right into it. Without further ado, I'll just show you some information here also with some slides. So this is me, I'm Lucas, managing director and founder of bookingkit. So we'll structure this today by 5 points. So I'll give you a short update on the current situation in our industry, in the tours, attractions, and activity industry. I'll give you 5 tips, concrete tips you can implement as of today for your business, including best practices, examples, so inspiration we have gathered from various amount of tour operators, from attractions, from activities, how they reacted to the situation, give you best practice examples to let yourself inspire by that. We'll give you some guidance, some guiding principles for how to communicate in a situation of crisis, like many of us had to do or still have to do, being that with your employees, being that with your customers, with your prospects. And we also have shared, compiled a list and overview of important resources. So what kind of information, what resources can be helpful for you at all times. You can ask questions by just posting them in the chat. Last week, we also had a lot of very helpful best practice information. So if you have a good experience to share on the topics, please don't hesitate to just put that into the chat. I think it helps all of us. I feel there's a lot of dry information out there from a legal perspective, stuff like that. We want to really move the focus to inspiration. How are other operators, how are other people behaving and solving things in these times of crisis? So without further ado, let's dive right into it and give you a short update of the situation we have. When we are looking at this crisis, the coronavirus, I think most of us are very, very focused also to China. Why to China? Because basically Europe is lagging behind the Chinese development, because China was obviously one of the first regions in the world to be to having seen this coronavirus or COVID-19 impact as hard as we are seeing that now in Italy and Spain. So what we are doing, we are looking to China and see, okay, specifically, how is attractions, tourist activities behaving in China? What's learnings we can take from actually the development in China? And I'm very happy that Thomas, bookingkit, our head of BizDev, shared some compiled information on Saturday in a post, which you should be reading. Last week, we had the question on, is there actually a compilation of what's currently happening in China, how the situation is looking there? Thomas took the time to actually compile that information. Why should you listen to Thomas? Well, Thomas used to live for 7 years in China. He first worked for an online reseller. He helped build up an online reseller there, especially for the space of tours and activities. And later he worked for bookingkit alike in China as well. So if there's someone having in-depth expertise about tours and activities and about the China perspective, then it's Thomas. Thomas took the time together with all of us to take a lot of expert calls, to have a lot of expert calls, to talk to veterans of the industry and to compile their findings, their gatherings all together in this article. Today, I'll walk you through some of the highlights and the takeaways of that article, but you should take the time to read the entire article. We'll also link the article in the show notes and post to that in the situation. As you know, and you probably heard from the news, the good thing is that China's already in the revamp phase. So basically, they cleared to large points the lockdown. So they are now in the phases of rebuilding the society, letting allow people to now do tourist activities again. And 3 insights Thomas is finding in his article is actually, okay, in the Chinese market and this revamp phases, what he's seeing, large distribution networks are mattering. So to give you some context here, what he's seeing is that online resellers are heavily helping to push more demand to tours and activities and attractions in these times. So that's very important also to prepare for right now. That's very, very interesting. When tourist activities, attractions open again, we see gradual openings. What does that mean? So, for example, for attractions, we sometimes have it. Normally, you are allowed to have 300 people there at the same time. Then, in that case, they try to restrict the amount of people being there at the same time to typically 1/3 of that to avoid new infections. So they reduce the amount of space there, and the same would happen to probably also European tours and activities companies, leisure companies reopening their business. And so different providers and operators are doing that and addressing that by offering, like, for example, museums, time slot tickets, a development we've already seen in larger museums attractions. It's now also coming to smaller museums attractions to say, okay, you have to decide on a specific time slot when you book online, and like that we can decide how many people go into the museum at the same time and steer a bit better, like how many people are there in the museum at the same time and avoid having long queues in front of the museum. So that's one very interesting thing we are seeing. And what we are seeing, ticket sales, it's the third thing, ticket sales take place online. So that's very, very important. In the spirit of reducing the infection risk and the reinfection risk, operators in China have completely taken off any point of sale contact. So only allow online ticketing. So you have to buy your ticket online upfront. And you are not even able to buy a ticket on site to reduce the infection risk. And then depending on the size of your business, then obviously you have entry barriers which directly let you in with the ticket, or there's a manual process to that, but to reduce the human-to-human interaction very much. And that's very important and very interesting to see also from the current ongoing development we see in China. Moving on, I think one of the findings also from Thomas there in the article was how does it work? What's the benefits? How does China's current revamp phase? What were the driving factors to actually enabling that? Because that's something we can copy right now in order to see the same revamp as well. I think 3 main takeaways he took in that article is Chinese OTAs reach millions of customers with pre-sales. So that's pretty interesting that the OTAs, so the online resellers, started selling tickets again before even the lockdown ended in a spirit of pre-selling. We'll come to that also in the section of giving you actionable advice. But that's pretty interesting to see that at the end of the lockdown phases, OTAs already started to sell tickets again. Second of all, one of the underlying factors helping that recovery was always in China, there was a strong connectivity between online resellers and the operators. So that also helped in the times where people are unsure. So they're coming out of lockdown, they are willing to do leisure activities, they want to spend time doing leisure activities, and then they are unsure which activity probably is now open, which is available. So OTAs, online resellers, heavily helped there by showing them, okay, this is what you can do, and this is what you can do as of today with the new regulations in terms of how many slots are there, when you have to come, when you can be coming. And third but not least, customers always could in China find their preferred payment method already. So obviously in China, it's different payment methods which are used by the customers than here in Europe. But I think that's one thing we should also copy here to Europe, to keep in mind we have to allow people to pay in the payment methods they need, they want to use in order to be able to have that rebound and not lose customers in the situation where we need ticket sales again. We want to open the businesses again, and then basically we're driving them away because we are not offering PayPal, credit card, or whatever payment method is maybe missing from your page currently. So that's an interesting finding. So if we put that on a timeline perspective, and that was for me quite interesting. Again, we are no industry we are no global economy experts. We are no health experts. So that's a disclaimer to that. We don't know really about the timing of each of these phases because not even our government knows. But what we know is that there will be certain sections of recovery. So one recovery phase will follow the other recovery phase. And hence it's very, very interesting to understand these phases of recovery also in the China perspective. What we did here, again, we talked to a lot of experts from the Chinese market. We talked with a lot of experts from the Asian markets, both from the side of operators, so people doing tours and activities, attractions, and from the side of basically resellers, being that online or offline resellers. So we talked to them and we aggregated that knowledge in an article. So, and this is the phases model, basically, Thomas lays out in his article. It's pretty interesting to see, okay, this first phase, this is the moment the lockdown stops. Again, people are in that moment willing to do leisure activities again. They are looking, they have been locked up for weeks in their homes. They are willing to go outside again, spend time doing leisure products. So that's really, really interesting for them. And what's interesting is that in phase 2, directly after the lockdown, the demand is there. People want to do tours and activities. And what I found most interesting is that in this phase is actually demand exceeds supply, because not all operators have been opened again. There's some restrictions by the government on how many people you can leave in there. So hence it's a heavy increase of demand. And actually we have more demand than supply. That's interesting to see. Then when things pick up again, the domestic market picks up first. What does that mean? Yeah, typically you don't have the long haul, the cross-country travel products which pick up again, but you have the domestic products which pick up first, which would be actions, leisure products you can do in your own city or weekend trips. So think of a trip to like 200 kilometer, 300 kilometer trip you're doing around your hometown. If you're in the French region, then you would say, okay, I'm going to southern France again, but not yet cross-border. Why not cross-border? Because in these phases of revamping, still travel bans will exist. Governments and economies and regions will have the fear that actually they are getting reinfections from people coming from other regions. And so they'll impose and keep these travel bans up for quite some time. So that's why it's very important to understand, okay, domestic travel, domestic products, same town products will come up again first. And also you should reflect, is my product ready for that stage, for that phases? Is my product, should my product be tweaked a bit to offer this kind of customers a good experience? Phase 4 is then basically the revamp phase. Again, we are seeing this nearly 100% online in China currently in the spirit of removing human-to-human interaction on the point of sale. And we were seeing this recovery phase being completely online, also in an ambition to steer how people come to me, to, in the example of large attractions of museums, go completely to time slots, to not have queues there, to have a very, very good entry management, which avoids long queues. So this is the quick update from the 5 tips. This is the recovery phase from the current updates. before moving on to 5 tips and best practices examples, just taking the question here from Anna. And again, we have a lot of time later also for Q&A, but don't hesitate. If you have any questions, just put it in the chat. And the question from Anna is, recovery phase in Europe will focus on the locals since we do not know to which extent traveling will be allowed. So even Germany to Czech Republic might be a challenge. So how will OTAs react to that? We got international travelers from OTAs and not locals. Yes, that's I think one of the challenges currently, and I think 2 points to that. A wider points, a lot of experts we have talked to, and we talked a lot to the OTAs and online resellers, and they are very aware of that. And in the spirit of obviously getting their bookings up as well, they are more and more trying to focus on local travelers as well. They know that, they know it's coming, so they're focusing on that as well. But you have to keep in mind, obviously, they're coming from a bit more international structure. What actually helps, and that's what we would recommend you personally to check, okay, what kind of distribution of advertising platforms are there for local customers? Because often there's platforms you never looked again on to say, okay, these are the platforms which could organize me local people. And you should also, especially for the time of reopening, keep in mind, okay, is my product actually aimed? Is it a good product for local people? Does it need a tweak? Does it have another tweak for local people? Because I think same city tourists, same city attractions, same city activities, something we'll be seeing pick up first, like in the very second of the lockdown ending. And then what we will be seeing is then traveling within the country, and then last comes the recovery of long-haul travel or cross-border travel. Moving on, and I want to send you home today with some actionable tips. So we're going to move on now to the second section, which is 5 concrete tips and best practice examples, which you can take home tonight and can basically get inspired by to actually use. We'll start with the first one out of 5, digitize your business. I think many of us got forced to digitize our business overnight. Yeah, a lot of our employees got put into home office. We at BookingKit are also 100% in home office right now. So it's crazy times. Businesses got digitized overnight. And we would recommend you to embrace that and think, okay, what kind of digital processes can you also keep doing after the crisis, the lockdown ends? So maybe the apps you're now using to organize your teams, maybe you can keep them using. That helps in a lot of situations. I think a lot of us get now moved to video calls. Can we at certain extent use video calls in the future as well? So that goes for internally, but externally for your customers, for your prospects, the same rules apply. So the same rules, what we would say is reach out to your customers. There's, if you're using BookingKit, there's functionality in BookingKit to basically have email campaign management, automated emails after people are coming to you, re-engagement email campaigns, adapt your booking system now, make sure people are ready for 100% booking and paying online, that there's a good experience there, that the products are up to date. You can also integrate with other systems such as MailChimp directly out of BookingKit. So that's one of the things you can do and should be doing, using the time now, digitize your business. So tip 1 out of 5 actionable tip you can start doing today is digitize your business. 2nd out of 5, when you started digitizing your business, we can move on to digitizing the product itself. So we've seen and report to you some examples as inspirations here, but what we would recommend to you is to digitize your product. So we have more than 6,000 operators using BookingKit. We saw a lot of great initiatives from them to actually move their products online. I wouldn't say, okay, this is the best option to reach entirely new target groups, but I would say this is a perfect thing to actually keep the customers you already have, keep the communication, people who are willing to come back, people who are already in your network, to keep them in the mood, keep them in having the brand, and then being the first thing in their mind when things go out of lockdown again. some great examples we had. So there's a company called Wurstgefühle here in Germany. So they sell sausages. Normally it's a cooking school for sausages. So they help you do sausage courses. What they actually did is say, okay, how can I put this experience, which is currently forbidden in lockdown phases in Germany, how can I put this experience still keeping my customers? And they actually changed their business out of a cooking saloon or a cooking school to become a delivery business. So in very specific times, you can have the very well-built sausages delivered to your home. So actually they keep like their infrastructure, their business, and keep that in these periods of lockdowns. Same applies, and the great example is here, the British Museum in London. They have an entire virtual tour experience. So you can actually, because you're not allowed to go through the museum on your own, but now you can take a virtual tour through the museum. So that's actually pretty interesting. And also we are seeing that very much with online sports courses. So everything you can do as a sports course. One example out of the thousands we have is Vitalistic. So they actually continue their courses, the same courses they had before, just they're doing it in a video format. So basically you can keep your training schedule, but you can do it at home while your trainer will actually tell you how to do the courses. So that's actually pretty interesting, and that's something we would recommend to keep customers you are having, and also that would be a good way of keeping them paying if you have subscription businesses. That would be a good way to keep them paying by still offering the service just in another format, and then everyone will be looking forward to see his or her teacher and trainer again in the future. Because we know in these times the two things you can do to build up your immunization is sports and healthy food. So I think we should be trying, especially as online sports or sports courses, to keep the sport going and not relax on that during these times of lockdown. So 2nd out of 5 concrete best practice examples and tips. Every selection we did here is unfair because there's more than thousands great examples of how operators reacted to that. We just want to give you some inspiration. There's more inspiration on bookingkit.net/blog, so you'll find more inspiration there, more content there. That's the way how we try to put things for you, to not just dry you up with some legal requirements and some legal documents, but give you inspiration how other people have solved the situation. So 2nd out of 5, digitize your product. 3rd out of 5, give discounts now. You should be starting with discounts. What we are seeing is that people are willing to spend for leisure products already now. People know this is a crisis situation. People know they are willing to do leisure things in the future again. So people are willing also to spend money on that. We have 2 great examples here from Berlin and one from Brussels. One from Berlin is the Dali Museum, so an exhibition of Dali pictures. They are doing a Corona action that you actually now buy 1 ticket, and then when the crisis is over, you can come with the 1 ticket with 2 people. So it's a classic buy 2, pay 1 action, but for the Corona action crisis situation. And again, a lot of customers actually want to support your activity, want to support your leisure product right now. They're willing to support that. They want to see you surviving this crisis. They want to do your experience in the future. So it's a great way to offer discounted products for the future, to give your customers the chance to actually be able to support you, to have a good product, to be able to support you. That's pretty interesting. The same goes for LiveScope, which is a VR game, virtual reality game in Brussels. So what they are doing is they are offering prepaid packages for the future. So you can have pay now, you get cash flow now as operator, and people get a discount on the future products they have. That's pretty interesting to see. And that's something maybe you can get inspired to as well. So that's the 3rd out of 5 concrete tips we are giving you today. Offer discount packages in order to help people support you, help people helping you. People are willing to do that. Just offer them a way to do that. 4th out of 5 concrete actionable tips you can take home today, implement today, as use additional products. So what does that mean? We have, like, I'll tell you an example of a helicopter company here, based here in Berlin, Air Service Berlin. They're doing it great. So imagine a helicopter company is very, very expensive. So the helicopter is expensive. And in the second the helicopter flies, it costs per minute a lot of money. So what they're doing is they have a lot of additional products. So I think the standard helicopter flight is something around 99 euros. And then on top of that, you can buy different upgrades. One upgrade would be seat next to the pilot. And now you would be saying, okay, I'm more than willing, because me personally, I want absolutely to have this premium seat next to the pilot. So I'm willing to pay another 50 euro on top of that just to be sitting there. On the operator's perspective, anyway, there's going to be someone sitting next to the pilot. Hence, that's a seat. The 50 euro you earn extra is for no extra cost. Same category, for example, is they have a VIP shuttle service to the helicopter. So you can let yourself be shuttled to the helicopter. Compared to a helicopter, the limousine costs nothing. So that's actually a great example on how to do another upsell product. For 30 euro extra, you get a VIP shuttle there. The shuttle, the cost is for shuttling you there is very, very low. So the marginal cost is very high. And by that, you get people to pay more for your product. You keep everyone who wants to do your product for the standard price, for the 99 euro price. But on top of that, people who have more budget, they have the possibility to pay more, and then actually helps them to do that and to pay more, because again, people are in a lot of cases also willing to pay more. We have more examples there, and we just had one of the questions we had was, could we provide like a catalog of good examples for upselling products? So if you have any ideas, please let us know. If there's any great examples you've seen, you have the example of Air Service Berlin here, also linked in the show notes in the presentation. But I promise you, for any product you have, because some of you say, I don't have a helicopter company. For some of you say, nah, that does not work for you. I promise you, for any product there is, and you can live challenge me if you don't feel so in the chat, tell me your main product and we'll give you some inspiration live on what kind of additional products you could be doing. We just found some for one of our customers who does stand-up paddling exercises. So that's very interesting. Tip 4 out of 5, you can implement today additional products, use additional products to sell them online. 5 out of 5 is use initiatives in your industry. We are in this together, yeah? So don't feel like this crisis is on you alone. It's not on your shoulders alone. There's a great saying, a shared weight is a weight lifted a lot less heavier. So a shared weight is a weight lighter. So that's very important. Let's share the weight of this crisis all together. There's a lot of great initiatives in the industry. There's local city-style initiatives on how to help from like a customer perspective, how to help leisure products. You should be connected to your local city initiative. You should be connected. There's services like Pay Now, Eat Later for restaurants. The same initiatives exist also for leisure products. Check out in your region what kind of initiatives are there. There's often from associations, there's initiatives. There is, on a more global perspective, there's Arrival, the conference format for tours and activities, who's doing a lot of initiatives. We also linked some in the show notes here and in the slides here. So connect to these initiatives, because people are willing to support you. People want to have leisure products, so they are willing to see you there. Moving on, so again, this was 5 concrete tips, including best practice examples. We've spoken to thousands of operators to actually get the best examples to you, to give you a compiled version of the best example. That's our job in this crisis, to help you survive this crisis, to give you inspiration on good examples. We gave you 5 concrete examples and best practices today. On top of that, what we are doing is we are talking to experts from the industry. We're talking to operators, to resellers from all over the world. We spend a lot of time with Asian operators and resellers. And here in Europe, me personally, are just coming from a call with another large reseller. So that's very important to us to give this connected information and distribute that, help you understand what the current development is. And we'll keep doing so, as you know, in a weekly format, and this weekly Help Talk happening every Thursday. Third section for today, before we share some resources. So important is, in times of crisis, all of us have to communicate a lot. We can't avoid communication, and we award you some guiding principles as inspiration, how you can maybe manage that communication. So the 4 things you should keep in mind when you're communicating is the different levels. One is the empathy level, the context level, transparency level, and the action level. So let me explain all the different levels one by one, because that's very important. All of us, we have to do a lot of communication in these times of crisis, both for our employees, both for maybe freelancers we are working with, to our customers, to our prospects. We have to communicate a lot. And so these would be our recommendation of guiding principles, which we have derived from a lot of great operator communication, from a great communication we've seen in a crisis currently, and we have derived these guiding principles for you to actually support you in doing that communication very, very well. To dive in here, I think the first one is empathy, to say, okay, whom am I talking to and in which situation are people? Where am I getting them with my communication? So, and this also means, depending on whom I talk to, have a different style of communication, have a different level of communication. Depends very much if you're talking to your employees, to your customers, to your banks maybe. So it's a different kind of communication, but maybe take a bit of time to actually reflect on, okay, where are you getting them? Currently, I guess there's a lot of media exposure on the coronavirus topic in general, and also on the implications for both the industry in general and also for the tourism industry. So I think people get the context already, but get them where they are right now and then do your communication based on that. So that would be our first guiding principle, to have this level of empathy, to actually try to understand where's the people standing who are currently you're talking to. Second of all, give them as much context as possible. Especially in these times of crisis, give them more context. There's a lot of high-level information on infection rates and stuff like that on a more country level and so on and so on, but no one knows so good the context of your communication, of your business than you do. So give as much context as possible, which could be on elements like, why are there problems, which could be elements on when will the situation be over. And because the when will the situation be over question is one of the hardest questions, be transparent about it. So this moves us to our third section of transparency. We would invite you to speak very, very frankly about the situation. We know you invested a lot of time, a lot of tears in building your businesses with other people together. The least you can do is to have a very transparent communication. Also, simply when you can't answer the question, when will the situation be over, then be transparent about it. Say, okay, I have no idea. I'm fighting for that, but I have no idea. Talk, be transparent, offer vulnerability. And I think in times of crisis, our recommendation would be to open yourself up one more level than maybe you would be doing in times of non-crisis, because that helps people understand, that helps people to be emphatic also with you, and gives them the possibility to find common solutions. Fourth, actions. There's a lot of communication, but it should be very clear. What are you doing? And what are your concrete next steps? So that's very important to say, okay, be actionable on your communication. Don't just communicate a lot of transparent things with a lot of context, but be very clear, okay, what you're up to and what your next steps are. So that's very, very important. And that's we've seen in great communication. I guess all of us will have to do more crisis communication, or already did a lot of crisis communication. So that's the guiding principles we ourselves try to use, and we derived from a lot of great operator communication, being that with customers, or being that with employees, being that with prospects, with all kinds of partners, basically. Closing crisis communication. The last thing we have prepared for today is important resources. We've compiled a lot of resources which can be helpful for you here. We try to combine a bit the legal aspects, the tax aspects, what kind of support can you get, but move the focus to inspiring you. Who out there gives inspiring information, how they solved, how they addressed the crisis situation. There's a lot of great people who put great resources out there. We see our roles as networking hub here to basically take all the information we get, distribute that to you. That's the goal of this format today, but that's also the goal of everything we post online. There's a great deal of information on our blog. You can find it on bookingkit.net/blog, and also here's the direct URL included, so bookingkit.net/COVID-19-resources. Again, all of that will be included in the show notes. You get a complete recording out of that afterwards. So if you missed anything, don't feel anxious. All of that is provided afterwards. Also, if you have a question, please don't hesitate to reach out just in the chat. If you have a best practice example to share how you did something, please don't hesitate to basically share that in chat. In the other talks we had last week and also earlier, there was a great deal of information shared. We have compiled a lot of resources in our blog, on our blog. I won't read them all to you. Sometimes when we find especially interesting stuff, we'll push that also on social media. So be sure to follow us on Instagram and Facebook, wherever you are. And we've compiled in that blog information for chosen activities providers. We have compiled best practice examples because we don't want to just give you the dry one of, okay, this is what you could be doing, but give you specific examples what you can do and how you can do it. We will provide you and did provide a lot of tips from industry experts. So we talked to veterans of the industry. We talked to experts of the industry, completed more than 30 different expert calls to have a good understanding, okay, what are good resources? We asked any one of them what good resources would be, what they would recommend, and we compiled that information directly on our website. We also provided links and information on different networks, being that industry or regional networks, and we compiled a list of different important addresses. All of that can be found directly there on our website. So please check it out. It gives a lot of important information. So this was the fourth section for our today's webinar. Again, we try to cover here a lot of information we are getting from industry experts, from industry veterans. We gave you an update on the China situation, on current updates, how it's the view to China, which was probably a bit ahead of us in terms of the curve of the infections here compared to European markets. We gave you 5 tips and concrete best practice examples for what you can do today for your business. We gave you some inspiration for crisis examples, and a lot of information is compiled on our website, on our blog, also on our social media, on important resources. If you have a question in general to BookingKit or any of that, please don't hesitate to now post them directly in the chat. We are here to answer your question, and we'll be continuously here. I think the first question, and if you have more questions, you can just post them in the chat. Don't be shy. There's no dumb questions or anything, just post them. And the first question is coming from Stefanos. Could you please send us the SUP example? I think I can give you a bit of context here. So one of the recommendations we are giving is do upselling. You should be having on your product 3 different upselling products. So 3 options to upsell. Typically in the checkout process, you would say, okay, select your main product, and then you go in this checkout process, you let people enter a bit of information, and then with the payment or directly before the payment, you ask them if they want to do upgrades on that. So that's the typical flow. I would recommend to do 2 or 3 upselling options. That would be our recommendation, not more than 3, because then people get overwhelmed, and not less than 2. Best case would be 3. That's always the golden rule to have 3 choices available, which could be also combined. So in the helicopter example, you can do the VIP shuttle experience on top of also the seat next to the pilot. So then some of our operators, they come into us, say, oh, Lukas, yes, I understand the idea of upselling, but my product, I can't really upsell that. So, yes, I promise you, I'll find you something. One example was the stand-up paddling example, and what Stefanos is asking about. And in stand-up paddle examples, we find a lot of great inspiration that actually providers are already doing documentation, videos, photos, even compiling videos afterwards. There's great software around where you can basically, with a GoPro, take a video of the entire experience of the entire tour, and then with the software, it gets very, very easy. It gets together. Then you have a map of where the tour went through, and that's combined automatically with the video. And that's a great upselling opportunity to just say, okay, for an additional 10 or 20 euro, you can sell the video. So you can send, instead of giving away these photos, these group photos typically for free, you can just ask for a small price on all these options, and that's a great option for many products to do to do this documentation part and to charge for that, because there's people who are willing to spend more on actually your product, so give them the option to spend more. And I think that's very important also for you as to zoom out a bit. More and more people are going to leisure activities in order to actually also tell their friends, being that on Instagram, on Snapchat, on TikTok, at whatever the social medium of your choice is. And basically, that should be one of your consideration points. How is my product ready to also be included in social media? How am I asking people to include me as a product, being that a hashtag, a link maybe to my presence in that social media, or being that the location, for example. And also you can give people the option to take great experience. So think, where is the best photo opportunity for an Instagram or a video opportunity in my experience? And that could be part of the consideration on building a product, should be, how does it involve in social media? So I hope that gives a bit of inspiration, Stefanos. If there's more questions, again, you can ask directly here, or you can also, and that's more than our job in these times, to be available for you, to connect you to other operators in your industry, in your space. You can connect to service@bookingkit.net. People will be more than willing to help you there. Maybe closing Q&A if there's more questions. I think we have time for maximum 1 more question. The goal of this help talk format is basically to compile all kinds of information from more than 6,000 operators we have on our platform, who are using BookingKit. We connected to all kinds of different industry experts and veterans of the industry. We asked veterans, how did they hold up in all crisis situations? We asked different experts from the Asian market and also from the European market, how they're currently seeing the situation, what kind of tips they would be giving, and we compile the best versions of these tips here in these formats. As we promised, this is a weekly format, so we'll be continuing to do that for the time of the crisis. Things are moving very, very fast currently. So last week here in the German-speaking markets, we had a lockdown on leisure products, but no lockdown on people. Now we have the lockdown of people as well. The same phases are coming also to all over Europe. So we are in this together. Don't hesitate to reach out, and we'll see us again in 1 week here again, and we'll update you on the current information. Thank you so much for your time. See you back next week.